Okay, good morning, and welcome to the Union County, of course. This is where we are, and the July meeting of the North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority Board's trustee. We're operating with a slightly different setup today with fewer microphones, so I ask everyone to bear with us, and please wait to speak until the mic it's way to you. That said, I'm very pleased to welcome you to my home county. For those of you who aren't that familiar with Union County, we have a lot of densely populated urban areas, and we are also our home of nature preserves and some quieter suburbs. We pride ourselves on our vast transportation network. We are home to the New Jersey Turnpike and one, two, three. I'm just going to continue without it, so in case that, I'll just speak louder, that's all. I've been known to speak very loud when I need to, so it wouldn't be the first time. We pride ourselves with a vast transportation network. We're home to New Jersey Turnpike, and of course the Garden State Parkway, which I'm sure you saw or came in that direction, which is right here. We have extensive freight and passenger rail service, and we're home to the Port of Elizabeth. Union County has a strong technological base and a diverse population. We host several corporate headquarters, including Merck and Company, which used to be called Sharing Plow, and Wakefern Foods. We have a diverse industrial and manufacturing base that includes retail, pharmaceuticals, petroleum, and telecommunications. I want to again thank all of you for coming, and before we turn to the agenda, I just wanted to make some quick introductions of a few people for Union County who have joined us today. And I have that in a piece of paper so I don't leave anybody out. We're joined first and most importantly by Ed Oldman, who is the county manager who took a back seat. I hope he's not going to leave us, but in case, that's Ed in the back. He likes to sit in the back. He likes to listen. And we'll also have Amy Wagner, who is the deputy county manager and is the director of the Department of Economic Development. Amy, second row. We have Phil Candle, who is the Division Director for Strategic Planning and Intergovernmental Relations. Okay, let me go to that again. Division Director, Strategic Planning and Intergovernmental Relations. I don't know. I'm just going to keep on speaking when he goes away, so I'll just raise my voice so you'll be able to hear me. We have Lisa Betts, which is the Bureau Chief, Bureau of Transportation and Planning, and we have John Witch, Transportation Planning Interim. Now, I don't know if, when are we doing now turning to today's meeting, as a reminder to everyone, the meeting is being videotaped and will be archived on the NJTPA website. To start the meeting, I will ask Beverly Morris to read the Open Public Meetings Act. Bev?
Bergen?
Present.
Open public meetings. Essex?
Here.
Hudson? Hunterdon?
Yes.
Jersey City? Middlesex?
Here.
Monmouth? Present. Morris? Present. Newark?
Present.
Ocean? Passaic? Somerset?
Here.
Sussex?
Present.
Union?
Present.
Warren?
Here.
Governor's Office?
Here.
NJDOT?
Here.
NJ Transit?
Here.
Port Authority?
Here.
Citizens Representative?
Present.
Mr. Chairman, we have 17 voting members present and quorum.
Thank you very much. Now, would it?
She read the open public.
Need to go back to, she did not read it.
Okay,
Shall I read the open public?
please.
Yes.
This is to advise that in accordance with the Open Public Meetings Act, Chapter 231, PL, 1975, adequate notice of this meeting has been forwarded to the New York Star Ledger, the Asbury Park Press, the Courier News, the Daily Record, the Home News Tribune, the Jersey Journal, and the New Jersey Herald. It was posted in the Essex
Thank you very much, Beverly. Will everybody please stand and join me to salute to our flag? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. I believe that we have done the roll call, so you have everybody that's here. The next item is approval of the minutes. Are there any corrections, additions, deletions to the minutes of June 17 board meeting? Here's your time. Well, since I have not heard anything, it means that everybody agrees with the minutes. May I have a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion, Hunterdon.
Thank you. Second. Somerset seconds. Thank you very much. Now, there's all in favor. Aye. Indicate say aye or nay. Okay. Those opposed or any abstentions? Okay.
Monmouth abstaining?
Yes.
Okay, the minutes are approved.
Thank you very much. Since we're having a presentation later on, I would like to ask the individuals in communications that would please check out the mic on the other side, and we're going to make sure we get this great information today that's planned. I don't know if that can be done, or so we can get that, make sure that we're working in that side. I come to Union County and then I have all kinds of difficulties getting this meeting on the way. I don't understand. I'm home and I should feel even better, smoother operation, but that isn't the case. Well, let's see. Now is an opportunity to present my report. Once again, thank you all for coming this morning to this morning meetings, and exciting to honor to host here at my home county of Union. We have a lot of to talk about today. I want to start with some very positive news about our work to make transportation safer for everyone in our region. And as you know, it is our top priority at the NJTPA. One of the most visible efforts in this area is our Street Smart New Jersey pedestrian safety program. And just recently, Rutgers University finished an analysis of the 8 Street Smart campaigns completed in the last year. Those are the cities of Asbury Park, Garfield, Morris Plains, Newark, Princeton, Rutherford, and Woodbridge. I'm happy to report that the analysis shows the campaign is it's helping to change the behaviors that contribute to crashes. I wanted to share just a few highlights. The results show that 60% more drivers stop for people crossing when turning right at a red light or stop signs after the campaign. And there was a 21% increase in people using crosswalks or waiting for the walk signal. This is very significant, as you may know, how we find that there are fatalities of individuals crossing streets throughout New Jersey and the country all the time. On the topic of Street Smart, I wanted to mention that Elizabeth will be kicking off its campaign during National Night Out in August the 6th. The city received a $51,000 grant from the New Jersey Division of Highway and Traffic Safety to support this campaign. Mary will tell you more in the latest news about this great program in her report. It is good to see that education and enforcement efforts are making a positive impact on safety in our region. Along with the engineering work conducted through our local safety and high-risk rural roads program, and are certainly doing very good work when it comes to this 3 E's of safety. But as you know, and as you may recall, I often talk about another E, the third E, economy, equality, and environment. I like to highlight the few things related to these areas. As I mentioned in our recent joint committee meeting, I had the honor of I was attending the Bayonne Bridge rededication ceremony. I was to again thank the Port Authority for inviting me to this event, which was also attended by Governor Murphy, Senator Menendez, Congressman Sears, and the Hudson County officials. This project certainly checks the box when it comes to the economy. The higher bridge means the port can stay competitive for many years to come, and the region appreciates the Port Authority's financial commitment to the economy of northern New Jersey. If you haven't visited the site, there is a beautiful park beneath the bridge where the ceremony was held. And I also wanted to note that the new pedestrian and bicycle path is open to use. You can cross the bridge by foot or by bike. Moving on another E on the topic of the environment, I wanted to share that NJTPA is working with large group of the Northeast and Mid-Atlantic metropolitan planning organizations and councils of governments to discuss how we can work with our states to develop, measure, and implement low-carbon transportation policies. 14 states, including New Jersey, and members of the Transportation and Climate Initiative, a regional collaboration that seeks to develop the clean energy economy, improve transportation, and reduce carbon emissions in the transportation sector. The Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission hosted a gathering of the MPOs for these states last month. Mary and other NJTPA staff attended. I am sure we'll be hearing more about this as a working process. And on to the final E, equity. And I'm sure you will recall Mary and I discussed the NJTPA Federal Certification Review, our last board meeting. While the Federal Transit and Highway Administrations certified the NJTPA and gave us several commendations, there was one corrective action concerning Title VI that we needed to address. The NJTPA has long worked to involve traditionally underserved populations like low-income residents and limited English speakers in the planning process on our programs. But the federal agencies are asking us to better document these efforts. The NJTPA staff has been working to develop the Title VI implementation plan to meet those federal requirements. I'm happy to report that the staff is finalizing a draft of the plan and will be sharing it with us in our next month's meeting. The board will be asking to endorse the plan at our September meeting. The plan details how the NJTPA complies with various federal civil rights statutes, executive orders, and regulations that are in place to ensure that traditionally underserved populations are included in the planning process of our programs. This topic is particularly appropriate today, as soon you'll be hearing from our featured speaker, Myron Orfield, whose work speaks directly to these issues. Professor Orfield will be presenting on the challenges and opportunities to grow racial diversity in the suburbs and northern New Jersey. That was 1, 2, 3. Okay, I'm getting the sign. Move on, because we've been working on this too long, and we just gotta get going. This is a great topic for us. This is the same sign that I get when my wife is sitting in the audience and saying, cut it, you talk too much. I'm getting it from our staff. Thank you, Dave. I didn't mean to expose you, Dave. Oh, wait. I'm glad my wife is not here, otherwise I'll be in trouble when I get home. This is a great topic. us to be thinking about as we prepare to begin work on their next long-range transportation plan moving together in New Jersey, which I will offer you our vision on our diverse region's future for the next 25 years. And I will tell you a bit more about Professor Zorfield shortly. For now, that concludes my comments, my report. Okay. Now, NJDOT, any remarks, any comments?
Yeah, thank you.
Come on, Mike.
Thanks.
I know you have a mic. He's maybe working. Come on. All right. Thank you, NJ Transit. Now we'll go into NJ Transit. Any remarks?
No, thanks.
I don't know. We have the left part of the room is very quiet today. I tell you, that coffee did work, I guess. Now we're going to move on to the committee reports and action items. And first of all, I will. Yes. Oh, I've been advised that I missed F, which is the executive director's report. He wants equal time. We'll now hear from our executive director, Mary Amin. Take the mic.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Chairman. It's great to be here in Union County for today's meeting, and I'd like to thank the chairman and the county staff for helping with the arrangements and for providing for this morning's refreshments. Thank you very much. As always, we have many activities to report since our last meeting. The chairman mentioned the success of our Street Smart program, and I'm happy to report that we had a very successful launch of our Summer Shore campaign on Long Beach Island. I'd particularly like to thank Freeholder Kelly for his participation at our kickoff meeting in Long Beach Township. We're glad to bring Street Smart to LBI and to other shore communities again this summer. One thing we've learned is that it pays for towns to renew their campaigns periodically to reinforce safe behaviors. And as you heard from the chairman, this work goes well beyond the Jersey Shore. In fact, we've worked with 100 communities across the state as of this summer. Our TMA partners are also working on several campaigns. Just last week, Go Hunterdon kicked off its campaign in Lambertville. And we'll be working with new communities this fall, including New Brunswick, thanks to grant support from the New Jersey Division of Highway Traffic Safety. I'm also happy to say that we're forging new partnerships to help get the word out. As you may be aware, we've partnered with the New Jersey Devils in order to reach a broader audience. 3-time Stanley Cup champion Ken Daneyko and the Devils mascot, NJ, shot a public service announcement for us, and the Devils are promoting it on social media. NJTPA staff will be happy to provide a link to the video. The Devils will also be promoting Street Smart in emails to ticket purchasers when hockey season starts this fall. And later this summer, we'll be partnering with Univision to reach Spanish-speaking residents in the state. So Street Smart continues to grow and to gain recognition. Please go to bstreetsmartnj.org if you or your town want to learn more. Street Smart is one of the many ways we engage the public at the NJTPA. As you know, last November, we adopted a public engagement plan that sets an ambitious agenda for better involving all communities in our planning process. It identified many innovative techniques, and we're now working to implement that plan. This has included staff training by the Rutgers Voorhees Transportation Center on public engagement best practices. Most recently, staff was trained on meeting facilitation, and Rutgers attended a recent RTAC workshop to highlight best practices that our subregions can use in their studies. In addition, I'm pleased to announce that we've begun recruiting participants for our new Up Next advisory group, which will give young adults a better voice in our work, including input into the next long-range plan. We're also getting the word out through other venues. NJTPA staffers have participated in KMM's informative Mobility Matters radio program and have been interviewed by other media outlets on pedestrian safety and other important topics. Of course, our ongoing work with Together North Jersey has been essential in broadening the scope and reach of our work to all communities. On June 6th, the NJTPA hosted a Together North Jersey Training Institute workshop on transit hubs that featured presentations on pilot projects in Dunellen, Passaic, and Bloomfield. Lessons and insights from the pilots were used to compile a transit hub guidebook, which can be used by other towns seeking to promote transit-oriented development. The guidebook is available on the TNJ website. Another recently concluded Together North Jersey project looked at improving food access in Dover. That effort also resulted in a guidebook that's available on the Together North Jersey website. Together North Jersey also recently held a workshop on parking management, always a crucial issue in downtown areas, and planning is underway for additional Training Institute events later this year. With the end of the 2019 fiscal year on June 30th, NJTPA central staff and the subregions are wrapping up a variety of efforts. The highlights included in your board books have a full rundown. Among the NJTPA studies recently completed are the Passaic River Basin Climate Resilience Plan and the development of regional performance measures. Subregional studies were recently completed in Newark and Hudson, Monmouth, Ocean, and Somerset counties. In addition, we're preparing reports on the Complete Streets technical assistance provided to 9 municipalities in cooperation with Rutgers Voorhees Center and with Sustainable Jersey. Over the summer, reports on all these efforts will be finalized and posted on the NJTPA website. Speaking of the website, as you may have noticed, we just rolled out an updated site that meets the latest technology standards and works well on mobile devices. The site was ready for a makeover and an upgrade. So please let us know what you think after you've had a chance to kick the tires a little bit. Other innovations are in store for the new fiscal year. Work on new initiatives in our 2020 work program is getting underway, including an investigation of regional transportation demand management options and a new round of planning for emerging centers projects. Work will continue on sub-regional studies in Jersey City and Passaic and Essex counties, and 5 new studies are commencing in Hudson, Monmouth, Somerset, Union, and Warren counties. At the same time, we're soliciting proposals for future sub-regional studies and will be soliciting for new Complete Streets assistance proposals shortly. In the months to come, we'll also be announcing new rounds of local concept development studies and local safety projects. You'll hear more about these and others at future board and committee meetings. I should also note that nearly all the work that we'll be doing in fiscal year 2020 will help provide the foundation for updating our long-range transportation plan, which will come before this board in about 2 years. One of the important issues we'll have to consider in the plan is the potential impacts of automated vehicles, a topic explored at a recent Smart Driving Car conference in Princeton that I attended along with other staff members. In a paper that we were invited to submit following the conference, we made the point that MPOs will play a crucial role not only in making investments to accommodate these vehicles, but also in supporting services with distinct societal benefits, including job access for low-income communities and mobility for the disabled. No doubt we will have to coordinate with our neighboring MPOs on how to integrate the automated vehicles into commuting networks. This underlines the importance of our involvement with the Metropolitan Area Planning, or MAP Forum, composed of 8 MPOs in New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and Pennsylvania. The Freight Working Group of the MAP Forum met in May, and a general forum meeting was held in June. Already improving our modeling and other technologies is a key area of collaboration for the MAP Forum. So I look forward to working with the board and subregions in formulating policies for automated vehicles and on other critical topics as we embark on updating our long-range plan. And that concludes my report, Mr. Chairman.
I don't know, but I don't think I'm going to move the mic because the mic didn't go down even once. So I don't know.
Thank you.
It's probably Mary, her tone of voice that's causing this. Anyway. I don't know. Can you hear me anyway? No, you can't. So
Keep it there, yeah.
Keep it the
Don't
same
worry.
angle. Same angle. Same angle. Okay, good. Okay, so now can go back to G, which is the committee report and action items. And we're honored to have freeholder Kathy DeFilippo, the chair of the Project Prioritization Committee, to give a committee report. Kathy? Where's Kathy? Oh, there she is.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You want a mic? We can get it.
Can you
No,
hear my voice?
yeah, we'll get it over there. It's guaranteed to work better than mine.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm pleased to report on the activities of the Project Prioritization Committee. At the June joint meeting, the committee considered 2 action items. First, the committee recommended the endorsement of the state's fiscal year 2020 Transportation Capital Program, which is required for allocating state funds to projects and programs. The capital program includes $2.8 billion in projects and programs in the NJTPA region and was approved by the legislature as part of the recently concluded state budget process. In June, the capital program and a summary of changes to local projects was provided to members of the Project Prioritization Committee and RTAC for their review. The capital program provides a foundation for the NJTPA's Transportation Improvement Program, or otherwise known as TIP, which allocates federal funding to projects and programs. The draft TIP is now being finalized and will undergo a public comment period from July 26 to August 26. It will be considered for approval along with the air quality conformity determination and self-certification at our September board meeting. Endorsements of the Transportation Capital Program is listed as action item number 1 on the agenda. Next, the Port Authority's request. The committee considered approval of a minor amendment to the current TIP to use available disaster recovery and resilience program funding. This action would add the replacement of Harrison Station South West Head House and Platform Project in Hudson County to the current TIP. Reduction in anticipated costs for 2 other projects has made $31.5 million in federal funds and $3.5 million in Port Authority funds available for this project. These source projects are repairs at the Harrison Car Maintenance Facility in Hudson County and track work repair and restoration in Hudson and Essex counties. That is action item number 2. Also at the meeting, central staff updated the committee on the consultant fiscal year 2019 local safety high-risk rural consultant assistance program. What a mouthful.
Yeah.
Under the program, engineering consultants assist the subregions with identifying and evaluating potential roadway improvements and provide technical support from design through construction authorization. Central staff has been reaching out to all sub-regional engineers to learn how the consultants' efforts may best complement their own expertise. The next solicitation for the assistance program will be announced later this summer. Since 2013, the NJTPA has allocated more than $9 million for design of projects in the local safety and high-risk rural program. Finally, on June 27, the committee met via a special conference request, teleconference request of the NJDOT to consider approval of a minor amendment to the current TIP. The amendment would add $22 million in federal funds to the Route 3, Route 46, Valley Road, and Notch Rifle Camp Road interchange, Contract B project in Passaic County. The construction cost estimate for the project has increased, and sufficient funds are available through the Fiscal Constraint Bank. This minor amendment is listed as action item number 3. And that completes my report, Mr. Chairman.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, now, in order to do this, let's see now, number one is the endorsement of the draft for the fiscal year 2020 Transportation Capital Program. May I have a motion to approve this resolution?
Move Sussex.
Sussex moves. Thank you. Anybody?
100 seconds.
Thank you, Harrington County, seconds. Now, any comments from the board members? I know there's going to be some, and comments from any members of the public. Let's start with you, Jason.
Thank you, Chairman.
Go right ahead.
I appreciate the time. Unfortunately, Warren County is going to have to vote no for item number one. The construction money for the 57-519 intersection project in Warren County is unfortunately delayed yet again from 2020 to 2023. It has been on the program since 2007 when it started in preliminary design, and the intersection has been an issue far before then. This project has been on way too long for a project of this magnitude. We've been having quarterly meetings with the DOT, DEP, and Assemblyman DeMayo's office, as well as county staff, to update us for at least the last year. And we're told confidently that the construction was supposed to be in 2021 by DOT staff. When we brought forth for the Transportation Capital Program with the money in 2023, we were told that it was going to be looked into, but we have not got any feedback on why that was moved back yet again. Certainly this has been an issue for us. One of the major issues too, that federal funding is being used for this. We were told that we are asking for another extension, but have also not been updated on whether or not we have been approved for that extension, and if we will be approved or feel that we can be approved. So a lot of concerns with the future of this project, including some bridge concerns we have at that intersection on 519, which the county has been delaying the construction of to get to this work prior to doing the upgrades to the bridge structures for the county, so that we're not spending double money in Warren County. So for those reasons, Warren County is going to have to vote no.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any other members of the board like to, any concerns they may have?
Is there an update on that project and why it got moved?
We've been having quarterly meetings, and we have not been told why it was moved from 2021 to 2023 yet again, because we were told that the money, right-of-way acquisition was supposed to be for next year, and then construction 2021, sometime mid-2021, which we were okay with, but seeing it in 2023. All right.
Right,
Thank you.
we're definitely going to get an update on that to make sure that we're on the same page on this
And
item.
we'll continue having quarterly meetings with DOT and DEP and county staff, so.
Okay, thank you very much. Are there any other members who have any other comments? Any members of the audience who have any comments on any of these issues? Well, seeing no one, then I'll move to Beverly. Could we have a roll call, please?
Bergen,
Yes.
Essex,
Yes.
Hudson, Hunterdon,
Yes.
Middlesex,
Yes.
Monmouth, Morris, Newark, Somerset, Sussex, Union,
Yes.
Warren,
No.
Governor's Office, NJDOT, NJ Transit,
Yes.
Port Authority,
Yes.
Citizens Representative. Motion is carried.
Thank you very much. We now move to number 2, which is minor amendment to the fiscal year 2018 to 2021 of the TIP of the Transportation Improvement Program, as requested by the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey to utilize Disaster Recovery and Resilience Program funding. That was number 2. May I have a motion to approve the resolution, please?
Motion.
Hudson,
Hudson moves.
Second, Warren.
Warren seconds. Thank you, both. Any comments from any of the board members about this particular items? Okay, any comments from the members of the public on this particular item? Okay, seeing none. Beverly, would you please call the roll?
Bergen, Essex, Hudson, Hunterdon,
Yes.
Middlesex,
Yes.
Monmouth, Morris, Newark, Somerset, Sussex. Union.
Yes.
Warren.
Yes.
Governor's Office. NJDOT. NJ Transit.
Yes.
Port Authority.
Yes.
Citizens Representative. Motion is carried.
Thank you, Beverly. We now move to item number 3, which is a minor amendment to the fiscal year 2018 to 2021, the Transportation Improvement Program, to add federal funds to Route 3, Route 46 Valley Road, and Notch Rifle Camp Road interchange Contract B project in Passaic County as requested by the New Jersey Department of Transportation. As you may recall, there was a conference call about this particular item after the last meeting, which made some adjustments on there. And I believe that some of the issues that Freeholder Bartlett had from Passaic County had been resolved. Is that pretty much the case? So therefore, may I have a motion to approve these particular resolutions? Sussex moves, thank you. Anybody wants a second?
Morris will second it.
Thank you, Morris. Thank you, Ben. Okay, any comments from any of the board members? None? Okay, any comments from the members of the public? Okay, at this time, Beverly, would you please go for a roll call?
Bergen. Essex. Hudson. Hunterdon.
Yes.
Middlesex.
Yes.
Monmouth. Morris.
Yes.
Newark. Somerset.
Yes.
Sussex. Union.
Yes.
Warren.
Yes.
Governor's Office. NJDOT. NJ Transit.
Yes.
Port Authority.
Yes.
Citizens Representative. Motion is carried.
Thank you very much. Now is the time for the Planning and Economic Development, and I call for Freeholder Matt Holt to provide the report.
Playing the role of Freeholder John Bartlett today, who is unable to be here. Thank you, Chairman Estrada. Watch, this is going to work, Chairman.
I don't know.
Full report.
It will, it will. Your accent level is different than mine. There's something said in the setup. You know how it goes.
At the June meeting, the Planning and Economic Development Committee was updated by central staff on the results of the first round of the Complete Streets Technical Assistance Program. In working with Rutgers University and Sustainable Jersey, the NJTPA solicited proposals and actually selected 9 municipalities to assist with the Complete Streets implementation. And under that program, there are a number of things I'd like to highlight. Number one, the walkable community workshops were held in Glen Rock and Westfield and Parsippany Troy Hills and Bernardsville, and they generated a lot of recommendations for making walking safer and more appealing in those specific communities. Also, Red Bank was selected, and they installed a temporary demonstration project featuring a street mural, bollards, and improved sightlines at one of their very busy intersections with lots and lots of pedestrian activity. It's an area where lots of pedestrian activity takes place. In Milltown, crosswalks were upgraded and curb extensions were added at a key intersection, and there were bollards installed elsewhere within the town. In Cranford, plans were developed for a pedestrian plaza. In Eatontown, a pedestrian crossing of Route 35 was investigated. And in Fort Lee and Leonia, a bicycle corridor connecting to the George Washington Bridge was explored. And in addition, Sustainable Jersey will incorporate insights from the Technical Assistance Program into their certification program for municipalities, and preparations for a second round of the program are currently underway. Also at the meeting, there was a presentation on the Regional Performance Measure Study from the project consultant. And as many of you know, the NJTPA has worked with NJDOT, with New Jersey Transit, with PATH, and other MPOs on developing federally required performance measure targets for the state of New Jersey, as well as urbanized areas that are shared with New York and Philadelphia. And performance targets have already been set for safety, congestion, transit asset management, and other areas. The objective of the Regional Performance Measure Study was to supplement those required measures with others that focus on needs and goals specific to our region. And the study team identified 19 performance measures in 8 topic areas that include access and mobility, competitiveness, reliability, condition, community, safety, resiliency, and of course the environment. Other non-transportation indicators related to health and quality of life were also included. and to allow the NJTPA to report on progress being made, a regional performance measures scorecard was developed along with fact sheets and an interactive web-based tool. And finally, central staff also updated the committee on the status of PRIME, and that is the interactive online database of findings from planning studies conducted by the NJTPA, sub-regional staff, and some of the other partner agencies. And PRIME is searchable by agency, by facility, by location, by jurisdiction, and a number of other attributes. And it generates customized summary reports and graphics, and central staff is partnering with sub-regional staff volunteers and other planning partners to input data. PRIME will also help users see connections between studies, and it also will support collaboration in planning and advancing projects. Mr. Chairman, prior to concluding my report, I would like to comment, sir, that while I also, Mary, say go Hunterdon all the time, okay? I have to actually say that my birthplace is actually in Union County. Spent probably close to
Welcome back.
15 years of my very short life so far here. So I feel very much at home, not only with you, but here in Hunterdon County. So thank you, Chairman.
It's a pleasure to have you.
That does conclude my report, by the way.
Just keep cool, because we're coming back to
I'm
it.
coming back.
Yes. Next, we'll have the Freight Initiatives, and I call on Freeholder Charles Kenny, the chairman of the Freight Initiatives Committee, to give the committee report.
Thank you,
Charlie?
Mr. Chairman. I'm pleased to report on the activities of the Freight Initiatives Committee. Our June meeting featured effective practices for managing truck traffic, which carries more than 80% of the freight moved in the region for at least part of this journey. Central staff provided a live demonstration of NJTPA's new goods movement strategies for community tools. This web-based application allows users to explore issues involving truck movement in urban, suburban, and rural areas and identify strategies that successfully address similar challenges. The tool can be useful to planners, local officials, developers, transportation providers, and property owners when dealing with truck issues. For example, the tool offers approaches for curtailing overnight parking by large trucks on highway shoulders in suburban areas. The tool is available online at the freight page of the NJTPA website, and the staff that put the application together is very appreciative for any type of feedback they can get on your usage of this app. The community also heard from Denise Menendez, Director of Office of Freight Mobility at New York City Department of Transportation. Ms. Menendez briefed the committee on city strategies for improving the efficiencies of the last mile deliveries in partnership with other agencies, the freight and trucking industry, and the community. Initiatives include the Truck's Eyes View program that educates the public about blind spots around large trucks, the off-hour delivery programs, which fosters goods delivery between 7 p.m. and 6 a.m., last mile freight delivery options such as cargo bikes and shared use lockers, reallocation of off-street space for freight initiative deliveries to reduce the curbside dwell time and overnight parking. The third presenter was Michael Ruane, Manager of Freight and Aviation Programs, Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission. Mr. Ruane spoke about a study focusing on the last mile deliveries in Center City, Philadelphia. This work resulted in the development of Philadelphia Delivery Handbook and other initiatives. The DVRPC is now working to expand the study findings to address the needs of the suburban and other areas. The goal is to foster understanding of curbside demand management, truck routing, overnight parking, and other issues for communities to consider in a land use planning. Also at the meeting, the committee learned that the NJDOT Office of Maritime Resources will look at mixed-use maritime development at Port Raritan in Middlesex County. This includes the possibility of creating facilities to supply components for wind farming being developed offshore. In addition, the NJDOT is finalizing a rail freight guidance strategy and principles document in time for the September solicitation for the Rail Freight Assistance Grant Program. And I just have something else I'd like to speak on, which is the fact that this morning I saw one of the headlines on, or I read one of the headlines on NJ.com, and we are number 2. And in talking to Ann before, it's not official yet. The numbers don't come in until I think Wednesday is when we officially get the numbers. But we are going to be the number 2 port in the country for goods moving in and out. And that doesn't come easily. It comes through a lot of hard work of all those that were involved in putting aside what's in their best interest, but what's in the best interest of everybody. And so they came up with a plan. They've done some work. They've made some great infrastructure improvements, and it's pushed us up to number 2. And I'd also like to thank Ann and Jacob and all the committee for putting together last month's meeting and all the work that they do in regards to freight initiatives. And that's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you very much. Next, we'll have Freeholder Matt Holt give us an update from the federal policy area.
Round 2.
Round 2.
Many of you know, and if you follow the federal side of things, you know there's been a lot of discussion in Washington in the areas of transportation and infrastructure over the past few weeks and past few months. There is some speculation that the Senate is going to look to release a draft reauthorization bill sometime fairly soon. It would essentially be a renewal of the FAST Act with a little in the way of any new significant policies or funding. But for the record, at this point, there hasn't been a bill that's appeared publicly. In the House, there's been a great deal of recent legislative activity surrounding transportation. It includes some proposals that would strengthen metropolitan planning organizations. One of those draft bills would give the MPOs a greater percentage of available surface transportation program block grant funds, and there's another bill that would possibly expand overall funding program. There's another draft bill currently in Congress that seeks to provide more funding and expand the eligibility for the Transportation Alternatives Program, better known as TAP, and also to target Highway Safety Improvement Program, or HSIP, in certain high-priority areas. On the appropriations front, the House of Representatives last week passed a $383 billion spending package for 7 of the nation's 15 federal departments, one of which included transportation, which is good news, and that was for federal fiscal year 2020. That bill would increase overall funding for USDOT, and in the Senate, however, there hasn't been an agreement on any appropriation bills so far for fiscal year 2020. We need to bear in mind, of course, that these are all draft bills. And as we know with draft bills, they may or may not lead to actual changes to available funding or to any of the programs, but NJTPA staff can certainly provide more information on any of those bills. Staff also continues to work closely with the National Association of Regional Councils, NARC, and the Association of Metropolitan Planning Organizations, better known as AMPO, and they are key in monitoring important policy and legislative developments in Washington. And with that, Chairman, concludes my report. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is the Planning for 2050 presentation. You know, we look ahead in terms of our planning at the NJTPA, and now we're talking about 2050 already. It's only around the corner. We have to be ready. Now I'd like to introduce our guest speaker today is Myron Orfield. He is a professor at the University of Minnesota Law School and one of the country's foremost authorities on metropolitan governance. Professor Orfield directs the Institute on Metropolitan Opportunity, working with leading environmental and criminal justice law faculty. He is a former member of the Minnesota State, Minnesota Senate, and he co-authored Minnesota's Metropolitan Reorganization Act of 1994, which transformed the Twin Cities Metropolitan Council into the nation's most powerful regional government. As you know, we have been hosting speakers that will help us start thinking about the future as we prepare the work of our next long-range transportation plan. Today, Professor Orfield is going to talk about the challenges and opportunities of growing racial diversity in the suburbs of northern New Jersey. And Professor Orfield, it's all yours.
Thank you very much. It sounds like everybody can hear me pretty well from the feedback from the loudspeaker. I appreciate the opportunity to come here. I'm going to talk today about, I think, a really important topic about the changing nature of America. We all know that 80% of our country live in large metropolitan areas of more than 50,000 people. We are a metropolitan nation. Most of the first world countries are metropolitan nations. We have very complex local government systems. I was official in local government for many years, for 15 years in the municipal legislature and local government. I was a land use lawyer. I used to work on regional plans and zoning plans and all sorts of things. I worked for developers. I've been active in New Jersey. I went to school in New Jersey at Princeton. I worked on many cases here involving the Mount Laurel case. So I've had a little bit of background in New Jersey, been a New Jerseyite for a while. And I want to talk today about a topic I think that is an unaddressed topic in America. It's a very important topic in America. It's very important for the suburbs of America. America is a suburban country. It's about racial diversity in the suburbs, the patterns of racial diversity in the suburbs, the fact that continuing ongoing discrimination in the suburbs, things like steering, mortgage lending discrimination, exclusionary zoning, the way that school district boundaries are drawn, not only hurts non-white New Jerseyites, but has devastating effects for the older and more fully developed suburbs. Not only hurts people, but it hurts communities. I'm going to talk about this pattern in New Jersey, some of the implications of it, how it fits into some challenges that are ongoing in the state courts, and then I'd be happy to answer questions. One of the things, this is a map, I hope you can see it well. This is a map that shows the various parts of New Jersey. You see northern New Jersey over on the far right side. You can see the Philadelphia metropolitan area, the state as a whole, the Trenton area in an inset. I've given you this slide presentation so you can take a look at it at your leisure. But what this is it's about racially diverse neighborhoods, and I'm going to show you a pattern over time. The areas that are predominantly non-white, which is more than in our measure, more than 60% non-white, are red. Highly diverse areas in our measure are between 20 and 40% non-white. Mildly diverse, highly diverse areas, moderately diverse are 20 to 40, highly diverse are 40 to 60. And so this is 1990, and you can see pockets of non-white poverty. A lot of times it's associated with poverty. I'll show you those statistics. And you can see a moderate amount of diversity in places like Pennsauken and some of the communities in northern New Jersey. You can see particularly along the river, and you can see Patterson, Teaneck. This is 1990. Now, move ahead a few years. This is 2000. So you can see this pattern of racially diverse suburbs really growing. The green areas particularly, these are moderately diverse places, between 20 and 40% non-white in terms of the population as a whole. This is in lots of ways. You can see by the year 2000, the suburbs, a lot of the big suburban areas had changed a lot. They'd become very diverse. We think of America, a lot of times we think it's of a monoculture of non-white cities, poor non-white cities, and white suburban areas, and that's really not true. We did a study about 5 years ago that showed that there are twice as many people in the United States that live in suburbs that are between 20 and 60% non-white as live in suburbs that are more than 60% white. So what we call the racially diverse suburbs, between 20 and 60% white, have twice as many members of the legislature in New Jersey, have twice as many members nationally, have twice as many members of Congress. They're very powerful places. They're not particularly unified in the way that they think about policy, but they are the dominant type of suburb in the United States. That's very different than a lot of our preconceptions. Now, this is 2000. Let's take a look at 2010. Much bigger area, just a gigantic change. I'm a demographer, a law professor, pointy head. I look at these numbers, and they are stunning to me how fast America is changing. America is a multiracial nation. It's the most diverse country, the most diverse modern country in the world. A few years ago, there was no majority in terms of children born in the country. By 2040, there will be no racial majority in the country. We'll have lots of white people, we'll have lots of Latino people, we'll have lots of black people, we'll have lots of Asian people, but nobody's going to be a numerical majority. We're going to be a multiracial nation, if we're not already. We really are, compared to Europe and many of the other first world countries. And you can see this in the suburbs. Now, there's a lot of opportunity here, and there's a lot of challenges here. One of the things we know is that in these racially diverse suburbs, racial disparities are much smaller than they are in any place else in New Jersey. So if you look at the achievement gap in the schools in these racially diverse suburbs between black and white kids, it's the smallest anywhere in the state. If you look at racial attitudes in places like this, they're better than they are in other parts of the state. People get along better. It may not seem that way, may not feel that way on a day-to-day basis. A lot of times interracial contact is bumpy and bad, but surveys, data show that people get along better and they have better views of each other. Black people have more open and accepting views of whites, whites of blacks of Latinos, et cetera, et cetera. People live in the same space, they tend to get along better and understand each other a little bit better. There's a lot of social mobility in these places, both for white and black and Latino New Jerseyites. These are the places, these diverse suburbs, that have the highest economic mobility and the chances of going to college and improving life opportunities. That's the good news. They tend to be really well-run places, by and large. They tend to operate with good tax rates and good services. They tend to do a good job. They tend to do what America wants of government. They tend to be bipartisan. They're a mixture of politics. That's the good news. The bad news is that they don't stay diverse in New Jersey very long. Because of the forces of racial steering, because real estate agents at a certain point stopped showing white families some of these suburbs, because of mortgage lending discrimination, because the inability of black and Latino households to access prime low-interest credit. Black and Latino families in New Jersey, as they move into the suburbs, have many different choices than whites of similar education, income, and credit history. And that has a tendency to cause tipping and resegregation. And resegregation is a devastating thing. It's a devastating thing for individuals who lose their equity. It's a devastating thing for municipal government. When a municipal government moves from diverse to resegregated, it loses its fiscal capacity generally. There's a higher correlation between race and fiscal capacity in the United States than there is between income. When places become non-white, when real estate agents stop showing houses, when mortgage lenders tightened up, local government finances get in big trouble. And projects become, tax rates go up to chase a declining level of services. It's hard to relocate, it's hard to compete as the fiscal base declines. So the good news is these are places where these diverse suburbs, America's a lot more integrated in these suburbs than it ever has been before. In these places, people tend to be getting along pretty darn well, better than they have before. It's not perfect. I'm not trying to oversell this. That's the good news. This is the kind of place I think Martin Luther King and many of the reformers envisioned as a beloved community in the 1960s. That's the good news. The bad news is because of relentless driving discrimination, these communities are likely going to go through a cycle of becoming disinvested so that people with means can move to newer, different types of wider enclaves, either in central cities or different suburbs. So this is a pattern in 2010, 2017, even more. Now, in New Jersey, the patterns of resegregation are faster than almost any place in the country. You can take a look at an article I published in 2012 in Housing Policy Debate. And the suburbs go through racial change here really fast, twice as fast almost as the national average. Yeah. Chicago suburbs have rates like this too, Chicago South Side suburbs. So they're quick cycles. And in New Jersey, there's low thresholds. So when you see communities become about 24% non-white, you see pretty heavy levels of steering and mortgage lending discrimination. And this is, again, not only something that hurts individuals, but it changes the basic nature of that community's economy. And because you're not dealing with things like this, because you're not dealing with steering, because you're not dealing with mortgage lending discrimination, because you're not addressing these things, you're going to have really literally dozens of communities, dozens of suburbs in the second and third ring that undergo fast racial transitions and become very different places than they were a decade ago. This correlation and about change, it just shows this. These are some graphs and charts. I have a public paper coming out about this, but it shows that from very low thresholds in New Jersey, tipping happens really fast. It happens really much faster than the rest of the country. One of the reasons New Jersey ends up being very segregated is not only because of its central cities, but also because of the ways that suburbs go through transition really fast. So the segregation in New Jersey is not just the cities and the suburbs, but it's between the suburbs. A lot of the things that happened in Newark and Camden in the 1960s are written up by Philip Roth in his many novels about these communities. These same kinds of transitions are happening in literally dozens of inner ring, second ring suburbs, really fast change. Characteristics of diverse suburbs. These are racially diverse places by municipality in 2017. Again, you're just looking at municipalities as a whole. You can see where they are in these maps. Distribution across income types, you can see 2000. If you take a look at this map, the predominantly white suburbs in 2000 were 42% of the population in New Jersey. 17 years later, the predominantly white suburbs are 17% of the population in New Jersey. So that's a big change. If you think about the suburb, 41% in 2000, 21% in 2017. Moderately diverse suburbs, between 20 and 40%, or 29%, 21 to 29%. So about the same, a little bit bigger. The problem is a lot of those moderately diverse suburbs in 2000 are no longer moderately diverse. They're predominantly non-white, or they're highly diverse. You can see the predominantly non-white suburbs went from 10 to 18% of the population in New Jersey. The predominantly non-white suburbs are larger in population than the central cities of New Jersey. The predominantly non-white suburbs are poorer fiscally, per capita, per household. They have a lower fiscal capacity than most of than some of the central cities. Not all of them. Some of the central cities in New Jersey, like Camden and so forth, don't have much money per capita. Anyway, you can see the change. Now, if you take a look at the median income in the central cities, jobs per household, that's the top bar. You can see the predominantly non-white suburbs, a little bit higher income in New Jersey. Jobs per resident is lower than central cities. You can take a look at poverty rate. It's lower. Tax capacity is higher at the moment, but over time, there's going to be an equalizing effect in that. Highly diverse suburbs, median income at 98% of the average, high level of jobs, tax capacity at 78. Moderately diverse suburbs, again, these are the ones that are between 20 and 40, 113% of the median income, 28% of the jobs per residence. They're not necessarily really job-rich places. Low poverty rates, fiscal capacity, 99%. Predominantly white suburbs, you see very high median incomes, jobs of pretty strong capacity, pretty good jobs, not a big job centers, probably residential communities more, kind of like the first-ring suburbs. Poverty rates very low, and you can see the fiscal capacity of the predominantly white suburbs very high. They have good tax bases. So what does it mean when you have a low tax capacity compared to a high tax capacity? I have to teach my students this in state and local finance. Tax capacity, they get kind of dizzy and bored and yawning when I start to talk about tax capacity. But what tax capacity is you take the rateables within the boundaries of a jurisdiction. You figure out what you can tax. And it's different in different states, but certainly property. Sometimes you have a local sales tax, sometimes you don't. Other things, and you take that capacity and you apply to it a metropolitan average rate. You apply the average rate in the metropolitan area to the rateables. You don't apply the local rate because local rates vary. You apply the average metropolitan rate to the rateables. You divide it by the number of households. I like households because households demand services generally from municipalities as opposed to people. You take those rateables, you apply an average rate, you divide it by the number of households, and you get the fiscal power of the community, its ability to produce revenue at a given tax rate. Now, one of the things that's kind of bad about this change in New Jersey and the huge disparity, for economic development, these older places say, hey, middle-class people and businesses, please come here. We've got mostly poor schools. We can tax you at a pretty high rate, and we cannot spend very much on you. Whereas the newer, bluer, whiter places can say, hey, local governments, hey, middle-class families and businesses, please come here. We have low poverty schools. We can tax you at a low rate and spend quite a bit on you. So you have this one group of places that says no matter how smart you are, whether Bill Gates is running the place or whether a very smart person is, if you've got a low tax capacity, you're going to have a comparatively high tax rate and comparatively low spending. If you have a high tax capacity, you're going to have a comparatively low tax rate and high spending. And most of us that have choices choose the best choice we can make. We mostly choose to live in the best places we can live that have the lowest tax rates and the best services. We mostly choose to live in the places that have the lowest poverty schools and have the greatest achievement. Now the problem is it's pretty hard to afford to live in those places, and only about 25% of the people do, and it becomes a complicated rate. And it becomes harder and harder for these redder places, the places that have become non-white and diverse, and have lost their physical capacity to compete and regenerate themselves with all this competition. You can take a look at this is the suburbs and transition. It gives you a sense of what's happening there, groupings of them. I've talked about this already. School diversity, and I've showed you the maps of the adult population of the municipalities in New Jersey. Schools are even more diverse and even more complicated. A lot of times the school districts are twice as diverse as the communities are, particularly in a place like New Jersey where suburbs go through rapid change and don't stay integrated very well. This is a map that shows schools in 2000. Schools that are predominantly non-white, 402, highly diverse, 158, moderately diverse, 280, predominantly white, 628. So this is 2000, here's 2005, here's 2010, here's 2015. And again, you see tremendous change in the suburbs and the schools. And often when you see the local elementary schools change, you know a lot about what's going to happen to the community. You know what's going to happen to that housing market. You know when steering is commenced. You know when credit's going to tighten. Because when those elementary schools start to change fast, it's an early warning sign about what's going to happen. And you've got hundreds of them changing faster than almost any place in the country. And it's something to think about. It gives you a sense of, again, the very rapid change. Northern New Jersey districts, these are school districts that are the percentage of Black or Hispanic students. Black and Latino students tend to have the highest levels of discrimination, highest levels of segregation. Asian students, not so much. And so you can see the Northern New Jersey communities, a lot of them are more than 79% of the students are Black or Latino, many of the districts. And again, you can take a look at this. And then this is 2016 to 2017. These are test scores, and the test scores are a lot the same as the poverty rates and the non-white rates. In the United States, if you're Black and poor, if you're Latino and poor, 3/4 of poor Black and Latino kids in the suburbs go to schools that are more than 70% poor. If you're white and poor, 3/4 of poor white kids go to schools that are majority middle class. So Black and Latino kids almost always tend to go to high poverty schools. White poor kids tend to go to middle income schools, and that's partly because they have the chance and choice to find the nooks and crannies of affordable housing in better school districts. They tend not to experience the steering or discrimination or the other kinds of things that happen. So poverty and race are kind of linked together. School performance, again, is tightly correlated. So if you take a look at the poverty rate of a school district, you can figure out about 91% of it, 9.9% of its test scores. It's a really powerful predictor. So a lot of times real estate agents will give families, they're not supposed to do this, but a lot of times they'll give families the test scores of the local elementary schools. And if the real estate agents don't do it, you can find it on 54 websites that you want to look at. You can look at the test scores. And the test scores are the same as the poverty rates, are the same as the diversity rates. And those test scores, a lot of times people that are buying houses, people that have chances and choices are going to look at those things. And you can see it's one of the ways that these figures are reflected. These are correlations. Again, I've talked about how high the correlation is between test scores. It's 0.85. I said 0.91. In New Jersey, it's a little bit lower, but it's an incredibly powerful predictor. The income status of the school is an incredibly powerful predictor of the test scores. There's almost nothing that's even close. Now, New Jersey politics. Part of what's happening is the politics is bifurcating in New Jersey. And what you're seeing is in most of the predominantly white suburbs one party's in charge, and most of the diverse suburbs, there's another party in charge. So you don't have a lot of overlap. There's a little bit. But almost all the Democrats in the legislature represent racially diverse suburbs. Almost all the Republicans in the legislature represent predominantly white suburbs. So you have kind of a harsh division between those two. Again, New Jersey tends to be divided more on that line than in most parts of the country. You can take a look at the racially diverse suburbs here. The red ones are the racially diverse suburbs, and you can see that when I'm talking about racially diverse suburbs, you're talking about most of the suburbs of New Jersey. And the politics are it's almost uncannily matched. And that presents problems, I think, between the parties. There are not too many Republicans that represent racially diverse suburbs. There's not too many Democrats that represent predominantly white suburbs. It's really divided. And again, that's a challenge to think about this. Now, you've got a lot of basic measures. I've got too many statistics. You get a former state senator who's a law professor that can talk much too long. And bore the daylights out of mostly everybody that's there. But what I want to say to you is you've got some mechanisms to think about this in New Jersey. You've got really strong mechanisms. You've got a Mount Laurel decision, which I teach local government law. And I know Mount Laurel is a controversial issue in New Jersey. I've been involved in some of the appeals there. I've worked for various different governors on these issues. I know it's an unpopular kind of thing among a lot of suburbs, but it says, that decision says that every community in New Jersey has a constitutional obligation to provide for their fair share of affordable housing, the present and prospective fair share. Now, most of the affordable housing in New Jersey that's being built in the suburbs is being built in the racially diverse suburbs. There's almost none being built in the predominantly white suburbs. That could help a lot with some of these issues. If Mount Laurel, which is building more than half of the units in the suburbs, if they were moving them out of the poorer suburbs and into the more affluent suburbs, that could make a difference in these trends. There's also a lawsuit that's going on right now. It's called Latino Action Network versus the state of New Jersey, and it's a lawsuit that is in the courts now in New Jersey, being brought by, I believe, 2 former justices of the New Jersey Supreme Court. Justice Stein is a very fundamental figure in this, and I can't remember the other justice's name. It could be Podhoretz, perhaps. I'm not sure. Anyway, both moderate Republicans that are bringing this case, and they're arguing that the segregated nature of the schools in New Jersey violates the segregation clause. New Jersey has a clause in its constitution that prohibits segregation. It also is arguing that the segregated nature of the schools in many of the suburbs violates the New Jersey's obligation to provide an adequate education to all the students of New Jersey. And there's very strong case law that supports the plaintiff's claim on this. Now, this lawsuit, I think almost certainly, I'm a law professor, I've studied these, I think it's almost certainly going to prevail. I think the New Jersey Supreme Court is almost certainly going to hold this present condition unconstitutional. The question is, what happens then? And what happens in the future? Now, you can tell you what's going to happen now if you don't do anything. I'm kind of showing you that pattern. You're going to have lots more poor, non-white suburbs. You're going to have you're going to have population growth in newer, whiter places. You're going to have a big band of places that are undergoing disinvestment. That's what's going to happen. Now, what could happen? If a higher share of this affordable housing went to these whiter, newer suburbs, if you adopted a plan that created dozens, or maybe 50 or 60 or 70 magnet schools that were racially diverse and strong in the cities in the older suburbs, you could have an effect on these trends. You could start to stabilize them. You can take a look at Louisville, Kentucky, which is more racially diverse than New Jersey, and it's been stably integrated for 50 years now, and that's what they've worked on these things. Or Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina, has been stably integrated with many more black and Latino people than you have for 50 years. And they've taken actions to do it, and they don't have this kind of rapid change in the suburbs. They don't have the kinds of disparities. They have a much higher general, more stable level of racial integration. They don't have super, super white places, and they don't have super, super poor cities. They have, everything's kind of more blended. And that's a challenge and a choice. It's a hard choice. It's a choice that deals with the fundamental challenges of America and the fundamental problems that America has to deal with, the issues of race and poverty. It's a hard thing to work on, but it's an important thing to work on in a multiracial metropolitan nation. I often say that the Mount Laurel decision is the most beautiful and sophisticated state court decision that's ever been decided by an American court. It hasn't been implemented as well as it ought to have been. As you can see, the track record, most of the suburban houses is going to the poor suburbs. But as a matter of law and a matter of constitutional vision, the idea that cities within a metropolitan area are interdependent with each other, that they owe obligations to one another, that metropolitan areas are the true units of growth and development, that the zoning power only goes so far. The zoning power must be exercised with the welfare of all the citizens of New Jersey in mind. These are very sweeping, powerful doctrinal statements that really no other state has followed. You also have a case that's very strongly situated before your courts now. There's almost no support for the case. They're almost certainly going to win. The question is, what happens when they win? Does something good happen, or does something bad happen? Do you get a one magnet school or one little kind of remedial program, or do you fix the whole thing? You try to fix the whole thing. Think about school finance, think about land use planning, think about affordable housing, think about transit. You've got an opportunity right now. The court is going to say the present system is unconstitutional within a year or so. The question is, what's going to happen then? Now, one of the reasons I'm here is I love metropolitan planning organizations. I've written 3 books about metropolitan planning organizations. My favorite place to go. I like to listen to your agendas. I like you kind of people. I used to be one of you kind of people. I like everything about it. But I also think that places like this have a chance to make a difference in the future of New Jersey and the future of the country. Courts make decisions, but if they're not carried out by local officials with legislative strategies, they very often don't change anything. I've been a legislator, I've been a lawyer, I've been a civil rights lawyer, I've been a development lawyer, a corporate lawyer, and nothing happens unless local officials like you are in the driver's seat of the outcome. So one of the reasons I'm here is you're paying me a nice stipend to come, and I like to do that. Helps me pay my kids' college tuition. But another reason I'm here is I'd like to engage you to deal with these issues, to think about them, to use your intelligence and skill and power. There's a lot of power in this room. To make this work right, to use this opportunity to fix this problem. And you shouldn't feel bad about having it be so bad. It's pretty much bad everywhere in the United States. It's a little bit worse in New Jersey and Illinois than most places, but it's bad everywhere. And so what I'm not trying to tell you is I'm not trying to tell you that this is the worst state in the country, the most racist one, but it's got an opportunity now to change this pattern for New Jersey's future forever and probably show the whole United States how to deal with these problems. So you've got a sophisticated land use system, you've got a metropolitan population, you've got a majority in the legislature that's already diverse. So you've got a big challenge in front of you. You could really do good work, but you could also do nothing. And if you do nothing, what's going to happen is pretty clear. You're going to have a couple more rings of disinvested places where the places that we grew up, or the places that we sent our children to school are not going to be viable for our grandchildren or their children. And we're going to have to plan around them. We're going to have to think about them. We're going to have to write them off. We're going to have to think of them as lower value uses. We're going to have to think of them as a kind of a new America, a new part of America, a suburban part of America that nobody really planned for.
About single-family zoning and the housing and transportation affordability index and this concept.
Yes.
How much of that is a tool, just to bring this back to the transportation connection and the zoning connection?
Well, I mean, in some places of the country, we just wrote a report about gentrification in the 50 largest regions on our website. You can take a look at it. It was covered fairly extensively in the press. I mean, in some ways, gentrification in central cities is going to change the dynamic. You're going to have some pretty white neighborhoods that are emerging in Boston and Portland, Oregon, and Seattle. Not so much in New Jersey, though. I mean, if you take a look at our gentrification studies, we're not seeing big patterns here. But certainly in New York City, big patterns in New York City of gentrification, which are going to create some more and more affluent white spaces inside central cities. The big places in the country where we found this is really happening, Portland, Oregon, it's happening in incredible ways, changing not only neighborhoods, but the whole nature of their school system. Portland, Oregon is going from a school system that was half non-white to one that's only about 20% non-white, very fast. Seattle's having this pattern. Washington, D.C., huge changes, but not so much in New Jersey. And it could, I mean, part of the idea of having a less segregated society is having more middle-class people live in places like Camden and Newark and having more housing choices in some of the more affluent outer burbs. And in the long term, you'd want, a lot of people don't like this, but I think gentrification is an important thing that has to happen in lots of central cities. You don't want to have a gentrification that creates no income diversity. You don't want to have monoculture of super wealthy white people there, but you need some people, you need a variety of diversity in central cities because of the way that our economy works. We need to have people that have buying power in central cities. Not everybody can be poor in central cities. I mean, that's not going to work. It has never worked very well.
Hi, my name is Neil Weissman. I'm a cycling advocate, so I think you're going to see where my question is I know that New York City and Portland are both really going full bore on increasing their cycling networks. Part of the reason is it bridges transportation deserts, it's low-cost transportation, it's resilient. Would you like to comment something on the...
I think cycling, I come from a city that's miserably cold and has one of the highest bike riding rates in the country, and it's because of good regional planning. It's because we have really good bike trails, and it's a really good option for people to commute. I commute in the winter to the University of Minnesota across a frozen tundra because it's a nice way to go. I mean, one of the things, a big challenge that we have toward transit, I mean, and I know you know this as much as anybody, is trying to build more dense communities. And one of the issues is that we need to create, if you take a look at suburbs that are stably integrated, that have a stable, predictable, diverse population and income, these are places that are becoming, without really any help by us pointy-headed planners, becoming much more diverse and valuable. If you look at Oak Park, if you look at Shaker Heights, if you look at places, these are places where the market is transforming the density and the zoning and creating communities that are much more transit-friendly, much more walkable. A lot of times the local planners get in the way of what the market is doing in these places. But if you take a look at racially stable suburbs, they're naturally becoming denser and more complex. And that's a big part of this. You want to think about where are people working. One of the issues, too, is to try to think, I mean, one of the goals of our regional planning system has been to try to cluster retail, office, and rental housing together in nodes. We have 41 nodes in our regional plan, and we try to keep those nodes as dense as we can. And it's hard to keep manufacturing in those nodes, but you're talking about mixed-use offices, medical, retail. You know, retail is being, we live in a world where the internet's changing the retail landscape in ways that are hard to understand. But if you can do that, part of that is making sure these communities are safe and stable and creating nodes that people can bike to and that you can go effectively between one node and another in public transportation. We've done a job study that's coming out soon, and we're finding that in New Jersey and many parts of the country, most of the new entry-level jobs are scattered and non-clustered. And that's a problem for making transit work. You need strong land use planning to keep those jobs as clustered as you can, to try to keep them as close into the center of the region as you can. But you know, this big swath of disinvestment in these older suburbs is not going to allow for density. The market's not going to produce density in these suburbs that are becoming poorer. That market's not operating very effectively there. And so that's going to be a big problem in trying a regional density plan. If you create a big new wave of disinvested suburbs right in the middle of the region, it's going to be hard to reach the levels of density you need to really optimally use transit and biking.
Hi, well, Neil's a cycling advocate, and I'm a green transit advocate. I've been saying for a long time, and I think this would really help. We have a lot of the white towns in New Jersey. We are blessed with many old rail rights of way, and these towns we have more, I think, main streets than any other state around train stations. So and also the number 7 city of car-free city in the United States is Patterson, and the number 13 is Elizabeth. So it seems to me like to enable people to move out to those kinds of places, we really have to get serious about providing public transit to the train stations there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is one of the problems of public transit. I mean, if you have, where are the jobs located? Who are the people that are riding transit? You know, how much of it is a pattern of their life? You know, what's their socioeconomic mix? You know, what's the most, I mean, these are questions you're dealing with a lot. I've written a lot about this. But nodes, I mean, one of the things you can say without question is nodes are important. You got a lot of beautiful old nodes in New Jersey that look like they're not very alive. They have the infrastructure to be dense, transit-friendly communities, but they don't have much commercial activity. They don't have much private economy. So you've got a lot of beautiful old places. A lot of the Midwest and Northeast does that they were built, they were built as streetcar places 100 years ago, and they're almost perfect. The problem is nobody wants to live in them, or the people that have choices don't want to live in them as much as they did before. And that's partly getting a handle on these larger things. But there's a lot of, I'm a New Jerseyite at least for a while, and I remember all these places and all there's a lot of possibilities here.
Thank you so much. Fascinating presentation. The two examples you mentioned of towns that successfully implemented whatever magic you're suggesting here, there was one in Kentucky. What were the names of those places again?
Well, there were 16 places that operated what were called metropolitan-wide school integration plans. So these were places that involved all of the cities and the suburbs. And they tended to be in the border state South. So Louisville, Nashville, Knoxville, Raleigh, a lot of places in the border state South. And it was I don't know why it happened in the border state South. I think the border state South was a little bit more progressive on race than the deep South. And I think the business community wanted to get ahead of what was happening in the deep South, so they decided to do these things. Charlotte had a long-term plan. And these were places that became really racially integrated and stably integrated over a long period of time. And these were places where, after the courts ordered these plans in place across whole metropolitan areas, the local elected officials kept them in place. So a lot of places in the border state South. And one of the things they found is that if everybody was involved, all the communities were involved, they stayed very stable over time. And people stayed in the public schools. And one of the things they found is not only did they have very big effects on the achievement gap, but they created tremendous residential stability. So, for example, in Louisville, Kentucky, which is a place I've studied and written about, almost every neighborhood that was racially integrated in 1970 is still integrated today. Almost every neighborhood. Now, in New Jersey, I don't think you probably have 5% of the neighborhoods that were integrated in 1970 are integrated today. But in Louisville, Kentucky, 95% of them are. And that was a very big benefit to those older suburban areas, that they stayed diverse, they stayed economically diverse, that their housing market stayed stable. It's one of the reasons Louisville is a powerful, growing place, where people are moving to. And it's got very good race relations. I mean, I don't ever want to oversell any of this, but it's a lot better than it is in most parts of the country. There's a lot lower levels of a lot of the common forms of discrimination, but by no means is it a utopia.
And then, in layman's terms, what would it look like? Paint a picture for us. What would our MPO do next? What would the next steps be?
Well, I mean, the places like Louisville and Raleigh, and Portland, Oregon is another place that is incredibly integrated residentially, except for parts of it that are gentrifying really fast. Portland has done it mostly through a housing program. So Portland adopted a fair share housing plan in their state law, and guess what their courts interpret the Oregon land use planning law with. They use the jurisprudence of New Jersey. So Oregon has a whole land use system courts, and Mount Laurel is a central principle in their jurisprudence. It defines their system of fair housing. The whole thing, they have both 2 or 3 words in the statute, say fair share. The courts in Oregon have used Mount Laurel principles to give guidance to that. And they have in Washington State, too. Washington State does, and Minnesota uses Mount Laurel to interpret its statutory fair share system. And so in Oregon, every municipality truly does provide for its fair share of affordable housing. So in Portland, Oregon, every suburb has affordable housing. Every single one of them does. And they have a certain percentage of high-density rental. And increasingly, they're developing transit-oriented development along suburban nodes. They're being much more effective than we are in Minneapolis at clustering commercial and non-commercial jobs. And they have very integrated schools and very stably integrated schools. Their biggest problem is in the central cities. There's too many white kids in the central cities now. They actually have a gentrification that's so powerful and so fundamental, they may sweep all the poor people out of their central cities into the suburbs. Now, that's the only place in the country I've ever seen anything like that, is in Portland, Oregon. They also have an urban growth boundary. They have a lot of good things, and they have a very fine transit agency. And they really have connected land use and transit in a way that almost nobody else has. I think one of the things, in Louisville and Raleigh, these systems are dominated by magnet schools. So in Louisville, there are like 50 or 60 magnet schools in the central cities in what would be the first ring of suburbs. And they're really the best schools in the metropolitan area. And the last two lawsuits that came from Seattle, which has a really good system of magnet schools, and Louisville, the case called Parents Involved, went to the Supreme Court in 2007. And the plaintiffs in that case, they were both white plaintiffs, but they weren't arguing to go to their neighborhood, mostly white school. They were arguing they'd been denied admission to magnet schools that were half black. They had been denied admission to magnet schools that were science and math magnets in Louisville, and there was an arts magnet in Seattle. These white kids were not arguing that they preferred to go to their neighborhood school, which is much whiter, but they were denied admission to a magnet school that was half black and that led to places like Caltech and MIT and other parts of the country. And so having these kinds of schools in a very big way is at the center of both Raleigh and Louisville's plan, really fine schools that are operated above and beyond the normal kind of public schools. And it shows how good they can be when the white families are not suing to go to a white school, they're suing because they've been denied admission, like they've been denied admission to elite private college when they can't go to a school that's half black. That's the kind of America I want to live in. I don't want people to sue on that basis, but that's what I like. So strong, powerful infrastructure of really good schools in the center city run by separate authorities, really powerful and proven good, and affordable housing that really, the Mount Laurel, even though it hasn't been realized in New Jersey, is at the center of every place in the United States. These ideas of fair share animate animate the land use planning acts of 10 states of the country. And they probably had more impact in those other states than they have here in lots of ways.
Any other questions? If there is, we'll take one more before we can proceed. But I don't see any hands up, so we'll close that portion. And I want to thank Professor Orfield for being here with us today. Now, just to make sure everybody knows that this presentation, it will be in our website, at the NJTPA website, available with all the backup information as well. I think as the chair, I better start speaking as to, we got a lot into education, but it's all very critical for the future. As we do future planning, it is critical to understand our makeup in our communities and also the potential changes of the future, which no doubt will bring about some changes in the manner that we look at things and also execute or plan for the future. So I hope everybody enjoyed it. I'm sure that you're going to be leaving here with a lot of questions. But it's a very interesting topic because it just happens that we're also in the last audit. This is one of the issues that came up in terms of looking overall at our diversity. And it's something that's very important that we utilize, especially in our areas, when we plan for the future. So I thank you for that opportunity. I enjoy the presentation. No doubt it's left more questions in my mind than anything else, but that will help in terms of, for many of us, understanding as we do the plans for 2050. We now turn to the public portion of the meeting. As in the past, we advise members of the public that we have a 3-minute time limit on comments. There's a light on the timer over there at the desk where Beverly sits. We'll give you a green light and then a yellow line when 30 minutes are remaining, and then the red light goes on, and that's the time that, sorry, your time is up. We also ask you to keep your comments within this allotted time. Now, I believe we have a mic. Where we're taking the comments over there, okay. Comments right at desk. You're going to have a podium, sir? Neil, don't get used to the podium, okay? Today only, Union County takes good care of you.
I'm appreciative. Thank you so much. I just finished coordinating a weekend of cycling, a weekend retreat of cycling at SUNY New Paltz. That's why you have those flyers there. I'll try to, man, I just prepared some quick remarks. Besides talking about the George Washington Bridge ad infinitum, I also am a past president of New York Cycle Club, which is 2,500 members. I'm currently its public relations director, and I'm the coordinator of the New Paltz weekend. And the reason why I'm talking about this is because cycle tourism is yet one more way to justify building cycling facilities. The New Paltz weekend is a pretty substantial operation. This is our 5th year doing it. We've got 70 participants. Most come up via Metro North and New Jersey Transit. We make special arrangements. New Jersey Transit has an excellent group reservation system. They really help us out a lot. Because 80% of households in Manhattan do not have cars. So we don't, only a small amount of people drive up there. Our stay includes multiple food stops, sit-down dinners, a large group dinner at a local orchard. It's also a restaurant, outdoor venues. We support a local town fireworks. It is not for nothing that cyclists are often referred to as rolling wallets. We've gotten letters of support from the Ulster and Dutchess County executives, write-ups in local press, and Ulster is blessed by many incredible bikeable roads, serious bikeways, great resorts like the Mohonk Minnewaska Walkway over the Hudson, but this is nothing that you don't have in New Jersey. So I'm going to throw 2 numbers at you. One is the Rutgers study, which is that biking and walking adds $500 million to the state economy each year, and that New York City has 800,000 adult cyclists and no recreational facilities not shared with pedestrians. So basically, you've got this captive market, and they've got nowhere to ride. So if any of, you've got these materials, you have my contact information. If you want to pass this on to any of your any public official that's responsible for promoting tourism that wants to do something like this, I can talk a lot about what's involved, the mechanics, the roads, anything you need to get it done. And I know that our current president, we have New Paltz weekend, we have Memorial Day in the Berkshires, and our current cycle club president wants to do a 3rd weekend over Labor Day or Columbus Day. So if anybody has any ideas, you know how to contact me.
How many people attend?
Well, we have day trips, which could be 200 people, and then we'll probably look for some place like in a park. I think we're looking at Patterson, the Great Falls Park. We'd like, we're seeing if we can do something there next year. The day trips are like 200. The weekends are maybe between 70 to 80 participants for over a 3-day weekend.
Thank you, Neil. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anyone else who'd like to make any comments? Again, we remind you of the time frame.
I just got back from the last
If you want, you can give that to us, we'll pass it down, and you can go to the podium. How's that sound? There you go.
Okay, I'm Tim Sevener from the Transit Village of Mount Tabor, a member of the New Jersey Association of Rail Passengers and the Sierra Club Transportation Committee. And we just found out, we were all kind of shocked, we sort of missed it, that part of New Jersey Transit's transit grid is an incredibly disastrous project. $526 million for a 140 megawatt gas-fired power plant located in the floodplain of the Coppers Cove Peninsula on the Hackensack River. It would be in the top 15 biggest polluters of New Jersey, emitting up to 576,000 tons of CO2 each year. The idea is to back up the grid. I went to transit board meetings before, and I supported that because we need that in case of Sandy. But this, we do not need. It has to run 24/7. It would be in the Meadowlands, which could be flooded. There's a much better way to do this, which I've done at my own house. what Minnesota has done and other states, they've decided no more fossil fuel plants. We're going to go solar. For 500, it cost $1 million for the solar for 1 megawatt. In other words, to give you solar on the rail yards we already have would only cost $95 million, as opposed to $526 million. What we need to do, and we need to be true microgrids. I did that. I finally have it in my house. I've had solar for 7 years. I have a 0 electric bill, and I finally have battery backup. My battery is this big. My solar engineer, who's working on a 20 megawatt project now, tells me it takes a container of storage, energy storage, for 1 megawatt, to provide 1 megawatt. What we do, we take the rail yards we already got, and we put solar there. And then we provide energy storage. Now, this has the advantage, not only are you providing a backup in case the grid goes down, but it's distributed backup. So if one site goes down, the other ones still can provide power. Also, unlike this plant, which is only going to be a backup in case of Sandy, the solar could be running the trains all the time. This gets us to the goal of what the Dutch are already doing, which I've told you before. 2018, the Dutch have 100% renewable electric rail. That's our goal. If we invest $500 million in this project, forget it. We've just wasted 20 years. We're going to be stuck with this. It's a total waste of money. This project has to be revamped to be renewable electric.
Thank you very much for your comments.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else from the audience who may want to make some comments? Yeah, I see no one, so I thank you. One of the things I wanted to let you know, as many of you know, B.J. Kowalski, which is the chair of the Union County Board of Chosen Freeholders, is the alternate to these to the board of North Jersey Transportation Planning Authority, and she's, as you can see, she's not here. The reason being that on the 3rd of July, we had our bureau chief for the Office of Domestic Preparedness passed away. Her name is Selena P. Carol Lesniak, and unfortunately today is they're having their the actual mass for the an entombment afterwards. So please keep her in your prayers. An outstanding lady. She was only 43 years old, who passed away. Union County is in shock, and that's why the reasons why some of the other freeholders that were going to be here today didn't make it. But keep her in your prayers. And the time of the next meeting will be the NJTPA office on September the 9th, 2019, at the Newark Center, 17th floor, Newark, New Jersey. And if there's nothing else, I'll call for an adjournment.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you very much. And seconded. We don't have to go to a voice, we can just go to voice vote. Everybody in favor?
Aye.
That sounds good to me. It was moved by Kenny and seconded